Party continues its search for meaning in the political minority, a path out of the wilderness, a leader to march them down that path, a derogatory nickname that will stick for the president, a way to bait and demonize Nancy Pelosi that doesn't paradoxically make her stronger and happier, any idea about how to deal with the economic crisis or either of the wars that doesn't remind everybody of George W. Bush. Well, today they kicked off the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, better known as CPAC. It's a sort of right-wing-a-palooza, not specifically a Republican event, but a conservative movement thing where activists sound off and cheer and, practically speaking, choose which Republican politicians they like for the year ahead. For Republican officials and conservative pundits, having appeal at CPAC is one of those punches that you absolutely must get on your political dance card. 2 years ago, CPAC is where Ann Coulter decided to fling a gay slur at Democrat John Edwards.
I was going to have a few comments on the other Democratic presidential candidate, John Edwards, but it turns out that you have to go into rehab if you use the word f***. So
Oh, a big round of applause there. The word we beeped there, just so you know, just in case you missed it the first time around, it rhymes with maggot, and it starts with F, and it's not fraggot or flaggot. Back in 1994, famously, CPAC was where Paula Jones leveled her sexual harassment allegations against then-President Clinton, including an unforgettable X-rated and audible aside to her lawyer about how to describe what she said happened between her and President Clinton. I cannot even tell you what that one rhymed with. Last year, CPAC was where soon-to-be-named Republican presidential candidate John McCain was nearly booed out of the room.
On the issue of illegal immigration, a position which
This year at CPAC, it was time to take a look around post-George W. Bush, post-John McCain, oh my God, do the Democrats really have a 78-seat majority in the House now? It was time to look around, recognize the political wilderness in which they now find themselves, and swallow some hard truths. Here, for example, was Bae Buchanan speaking at CPAC today. And yes, she's Pat's sister.
It's our movement that gave this nation the leaders that failed us, the leaders that went out there and broke the trust and the faith with the American people. We've lost credibility.
Swallowing the hard truths, like I said.
I mean, take a look at what Barack Obama did. What happened was he basically took our message, co-opted it, and we didn't have the credibility to make the alternative argument to the American people.
Okay, so much for the swallowing the hard truths thing. That was Saul Anuzis, one of the people who ran for chair of the Republican Party this year. His big idea is that Obama won because he was so Republican. Really? Obama? Well, how do you guys feel about the last Republican who was elected?
I think we are better off, in some senses, not having the Bush administration to try and defend in many respects. Too many people.
The conservative movement and the big part of the Republican Party it represents have decided in the post-George W. Bush era that they are anti-Bush. They have also decided in the post-John McCain era that they are anti-John McCain. McCain wasn't even there at CPAC. But you know who was there and who got a speaking role? This guy, Samuel the Joe the Wurzelbacher. Although they probably meant AKA, not ASK, I'm guessing. Aside from all the CPAC celebrity sightings, this conference is a good place to figure out not just who's popular in the conservative movement, but what their core issues are right now, what their core critiques are now as well.
In the 1980s, we had a president who was anti-communist. Now, after the 1980s, at least we knew that our president was born in the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, the pulsing, throbbing core of America's conservative movement. But it all boils down to the hard question America needs to face now, and the conservatives are the ones who are willing to lead us in facing it. It's the question of whether or not Hawaii is actually part of the United States. Joining us now is someone who was at CPAC today, Sam Stein from Huffington Post. Sam, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Rachel. Pleasure to be here.
CPAC is such a high-profile event. It gets so much external attention, even from liberal jerks like me. But I have to ask you, while you were there today, did you have the sense from CPAC that this is where the Republican Party is really going to find its way forward?
Maybe, but that says a lot about the Republican Party. Of course, there were a lot of preeminent elected officials there. You had Saul Anusis, but you had Mike Huckabee, and you're going to have Mitt Romney, and you're going to have a lot of other, Mike Pence, for instance, a lot of personalities. But then you had Joe the Plumber. And why is Joe the Plumber there? I mean, symbolically, obviously, he's very important. But what does he offer new in terms of policy ideas? I think this is sort of the symbolism or underscores what the sort of soul-searching aspect of the Republican Party is right now. So, yeah, you might get a leader out of this, but you're not going to get fresh ideas, and that's really the problem.
What's the pulse at CPAC on the question of why Obama won and why they lost so badly in the last election?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of anger and there's not a lot of explanations, and I think that's what you saw with Cliff Kincaid. Again, it's all about tactics and it's all about anger. You're angry at the Bush administration, you're angry at the media, tons of anger at the media. And you're also angry at Obama, but not for politics, for personality. You're angry because you think he's a communist, because you think he's a fascist. There was one woman who called him both, and then said he was a street thug, and she didn't want to sugarcoat it. She told me, and you don't know if he's born here. So a lot of it is anger, and then the other thing is tactics. Tucker Carlson was a speaker here, and he gave a very good speech where he said there needs to be more conservative muckraking. He's right. There needs to be more conservative muckraking in journalism, but that's not a philosophical change. And then one other thing, Mike Pence, who gave a pretty good speech today, summarized it as this: yes, we need to offer positive alternatives. Yes, we need to take our message to every community, but more than anything else, we need to be willing to fight. Well, maybe, but that doesn't mean you're giving new ideas to the American people.
So tactics rather than ideas. Well,
yeah.
And what you call Obama sort of is a tactic. You said somebody told you that Obama was both a communist and a fascist and a street thug. Yes. Are you seeing any pushback, any intellectual pushback against running with the idea of Obama as a secret non-citizen or a secret commie or a secret commie fascist street thug? I mean, is that seen as a reasonable view? Is that seen as good political tactics?
No, there is a fact. I talked to one person who said, it pains him to see this. I know that, Patrick Ruffini, for instance, a young conservative, said he was painful to see Joe the Plumber be the spokesperson for the conservative movement. There's a lot of people who realize that this is not probably the best way to go about rebuilding the party, to be strictly against Obama on superficial grounds, and they hate to see the fact that people get up there and question his citizenship. It doesn't do them any good, they argue. But the problem is that the core, sort of passionate part of the movement really is angry with Obama, but not for political means, for personality means. And so you have them making statements like Cliff Kincaid did, or like John Bolton did, which was, what happens if a nuclear bomb falls in Chicago? These are the type of statements that some people want to avoid, but are pretty much at the heart of the conservative movement right now.
Cliff Kincaid said, what happens if Chicago gets nuked?
No, John Bolton said that. He said Obama is... Yeah, John Bolton said that.
Oh, well... I try not to talk about John Bolton because every time I say his name, I want to scream it because he's the most undiplomatic diplomat alive, but I'll restrain myself.
Yes.
Sam Stein from Huffington Post. Thanks for your time tonight. Thanks for reporting, Sam.
Thank you.